Hey everyone, it's Alex here. So today I want to do a video on how I learned English. So I learned English when I was in elementary school. So I was 6 years old when I first started, and we had been studying English in school ever since. So we had 6 years in elementary school, 3 years in middle school, and 3 years in high school. So in elementary school, I think most of them was just vocab, and you don't really learn the in-depth grammar stuff in English until middle school. And I think high school is just more of a reinforcing how English works in general. So that's how the education system in China worked for me. But I would say that the whole reason why I can speak English more fluent than, say, like an average person from a foreign country is that I watch a lot of movies, especially American movies. So I started out by watching a lot of those easier to understand shows like comedy, and later on I really got into war movies, zombie movies, so I started watching a lot of them. So starting out, you might not really understand what they're saying in the beginning, but it doesn't matter. Just make sure whenever you're watching a movie, make sure you have whatever your native language is as the subtitles and also the English subtitles together, and always put the audio as English. So when you're watching it, even though you might not understand everything, but your eyes will constantly catching those phrases in English, so that subconsciously you'll remember how English grammar works. And after watching a lot of movies, I mean maybe 50, 60, even 100, 200 movies, after that you will start getting some common phrases that people use in English. Say, I don't know why I remember this, but the way I learned the word absolutely is from Big Bang Theory. I just remember Sheldon keeps saying absolutely, and I didn't know what that word meant, because usually in school they don't teach you words like that. They will teach you yes, correct, right, but they won't really teach you those colloquial words, especially those long words that just means yes. So after I caught that phrase I did not know, what I did was I stopped the film and I went back and I play again to hear the word was pronounced by the actor, absolutely. So I write that word down, and then I will spell out absolutely, and then I will talk to myself a couple of times, okay, it's absolutely. And I will go back a couple more times just to hear how the actor pronounce it, and I'll try my best to mimic the sound, so that in the end of the day, on my notepad, I might have the word absolutely, I might have the word empathetic, I might have the word operation, or whatever word that you saw in that movie. But the key is you always have to write the word down, otherwise it will just pass your brain and you will not remember a word after that. And another thing that I would say is very useful is to listen to English songs, but don't just listen to it. You kind of have to stare at the lyrics word by word to see what they're saying. That will really help with the colloquial way of people speaking as well, and the words that they usually use. Especially English songs are not very deep, and they're not very, I guess, they don't have big words. They don't have those words that most people don't use on a daily basis. So it's really easy to understand what words people usually speak on a daily basis. So whenever you see a word you don't know, just write that word down. For example, if I'm listening to a song and then this word salt comes out, and if I don't know what salt is, I will just look it up, and then SALT, and I'll write that word down on my notepad, and then the next day when I review it, I say, okay, yesterday I saw the word salt in this song, and how did they use it in a sentence? So I will go back to the song and then say, if the song says, I put salt on my butters or something like that. And so that's how you would use it. I put salt on something. So I would use that word and I will put it in a new sentence that I just make up. Say, I put my salt on my bread, or I put my salt on watermelon, something like that. So that's how I remember words, especially if you put a word into a sentence and make this sentence a fun thing, it's easier to understand. And the third way I practice my English is by just whenever you get the chance, you always have to, I guess, find a person that speaks English natively. And you have to just go and then just talk to them and just don't be embarrassed, because the chances are you probably won't see that person again. So just try to talk to them as much as you can, and that will help a little bit. One last thing that I think really helped, but this is probably what most people don't want to hear, is that you really just have to do the work. Sometimes just by listening to movies, catching the words and sentences in a song are just not enough to prepare you to speak on a daily basis, on a daily level, I guess. So what you really have to do is you have to set a goal for yourself. Say Monday, I need to remember 50 words, and Tuesday 50. So like in a month I can remember X amount of words, in every year I can remember X amount of words. So you just have to remember and recite those words. There's just no easy way to do it. So you have to commit to that, and then you can't just say, okay, today I'm tired, I'm not gonna remember 50, maybe I'll do 20. No, if you do 20 today and you might even only do 5 tomorrow, and 3 days after that you're just probably giving up on this thing. And I would say that following my previous mentioned method, which is 1, watching movies, 2, listening to songs, 3, talking to a native speaker as much as you can, 4, reciting, memorizing as many words as possible as you go, are the key factors that contributed to my English. And I would say that that's how I learned English. But of course there's some outside of classroom type of class that I went to, but which I don't think is that helpful, but definitely helped a little bit. So one key thing that a lot of people have whenever their native language is not English, and when they try to speak English, is the translation process. So if I want to say I want to eat banana the day after tomorrow, I might just say that in English, and native speaker won't really think about it. But then I'm not sure how the other languages works, but most languages, the order of the sentence are not 100% the same as English. So a lot of people, when they think about that sentence, I want to eat banana the day after tomorrow, they have probably 2 words for the day after tomorrow. So they have to think, okay, what is the day after tomorrow in my language, and reverse that process. So the way I deal with that is, like I mentioned, you just have to watch movies so that you can kind of tell what people generally say when they try to express the same ideas. So whenever you speak your thoughts out, you don't necessarily have to follow exactly what your native language says. So instead, you think in English and try to find similar content, similar words that express similar meanings. So if you just keep practicing that, in the end, you will slowly, subconsciously start thinking in English. And that's how I feel about it. So before I came to the US, I had to take this test called TOEFL test, and that composed of listening, writing, speaking, and I think reading. So I think if you guys are interested, I will make another videos on that, on how I study for that test. And so that's it for today. Let me know if you're interested in hearing more stories about this, or anything else that you're interested. Thanks.